I want to talk a little bit about Serano's book, The Whipping Girl. I reread it recently, and I think it's brilliant in many places. But I disagree with, let's say, the politics which are made around the book. So I like the book more than the trans-feminist politics that it has inspired. Which, you know, like I said, so the group around questioning transphobia, the blog, I think they're very influenced by Serano, and they go around to different sites and try to be thought police, Orwellian thought police, and throw around terms like transphobic and cissexist and cismisogynist at everyone that says something that they don't agree with. So, you know, transphobic becomes not that something's actually phobic to transness, but it becomes anything I don't agree with. And particularly any form of discourse which reminds trans women that talks about trans women as having had a male history, you know, something that to almost everybody in the world seems pretty obvious, that a trans woman grew up a boy. Within this trans feminist activism, it's being defined as calling someone a nigger, basically. It's being defined as the most demeaning, horrible thing you can ever do to say that, and you know that really chills discourse. You know, if you know you know, I'm always trying to figure out where male femininity came from. You know, people who were born in boys' bodies and feel feminine. But if the trans women are all shouting, "We were never boys," you know, it's like, how can you have a conversation? You know, and not only are they shouting, "We were never boys," but they're calling me names. You know, they're calling me transphobic, and they're calling me cissexist, or just cis. Right? Is another thing about this horrible term, cissexual, is that it's used to make a distinction between transsexuals and other transgender people. You know, is that suddenly you have a good, bad, us, them, which is transsexuals versus, you know, both gender conforming people and gender non-conformists who don't choose transsexuality. Suddenly I'm a cis male, you know, which is like bullshit, you know, to deny me of my trans credentials or my gender non-conforming credentials. It's like, you know, it's a kind of coup. You know, it's someone trying to make a coup to create a boundary which excludes us. But back to the point. In the chapter Intrinsic Inclinations explaining gender and sexual diversity, Serano, with her background as a geneticist, you know, she says, I'm a geneticist, and you know, this is how it works. You know, so she gets some cred from being a geneticist, and then she explains her view of the current biological research. She has a model that she calls intrinsic inclination, which has three factors: subconscious sex, which I believe other people are calling gender identity. Other researchers, she calls it subconscious sex. So she says that as a transsexual woman, she knew she was a woman always, you know, and so that people who aren't trans know that too, but they don't realize it because there's no discordance, right? So she's saying that's the reason she can, and why other transsexuals say they have it. You know, so they report having this feeling, and so she's, you know, basically saying everybody has it. You know, because she does, which, you know, is is a little bit what she was accusing the transgender, the gender nonconformists of, saying just because they don't have it, they're assuming everybody else doesn't have it. Well, because she has it, she's assuming everybody else has it. So that's on page 99. 98 through 100 maybe is good to read. But anyway, so she's got a factor that she's calling subconscious sex, gender expression, which is interesting. I'm not too crazy about that term expression because it also sounds so social. But it's the kind of things I've been reading. It's kind of the sociobiology of gender, which really does seem to be the case, that there's a strong biological component to gendered behavior and personality structures. I'll read some research later, but even things, I really hate to admit it, but this research is showing children choosing gendered toys. I don't fucking understand how toys can be in your gene code, but whatever. Dolls versus weapon-like things. So that there's some, I've been pulled over the line. I believe that does have a strong biological component. And things like mannerisms, like, feminine mannerisms, and, I don't know where they came from in me. They just started to manifest. And the other is sexual orientation. So, 3 things: subconscious sex, gender expression, and sexual orientation. But what I'm getting from the research, and I'll read you a few things, is definitely sexual orientation is heritable. It is biological, it is genetic, and there's a lot of proof there. If you want to disprove that, you've got a lot of work to do. And gender expression is pretty clearly biological as well. Very strong biological component to just these kind of everyday behaviors and mannerisms. That there are feminine, there are female and male expressions of behavior, and those are heritable. But then this last thing, subconscious sex, which, I would argue for the rest of that chapter and perhaps the whole book, the thought that this subconscious sex is a genetic thing is really, really a fundamental part of Serano's argument. In fact, it's the whole basis, I think, of making a distinction between transsexual and cissexual. Is it that if you have a group of male femininity, old school transgender, some of us are transsexual and some of us aren't, that she draws a distinction, and she says that transsexuals have a woman's subconscious sex, and the queens and the transvestites like me don't have that. So she's saying there's a biological factor that she has and other trans women has and we don't, which, this is the basis for a cissexual, transsexual split. And, also for the inclusion of trans women in women's spaces and the exclusion of us from women's spaces. So, it's fundamental.